It's a minimalism approach to the conversation. And that's all they want to hear. That's going to bring them a certain comfort. It's like comfort food, that you're giving to someone. Welcome to this podcast where you're going to learn the strategies, the tactics, and also gain the confidence to speak your mind unapologetically at work and in your career so that you can get ahead faster, you can have more impact, be a better leader, and be respected as yourself authentically. And I'll be your host, Eva Curry. I'm the CEO and founder of assertiveway.com, INSEAD MBA, and a Forbes contributor. Now let's get started. Hello, do you ever over-justify your requests? Do you ever avoid saying no, or you're scared of setting boundaries? Do you avoid confrontation with people and with authority and with your boss? Do you try to get people's approval? Even if subconsciously, do you want people to like you? Do you let inconvenient people get away with being inconvenient with you? Do you find it hard to stop them, even if you're super annoyed with it? Are you quiet in meetings, even though you might have something to say, or maybe you don't even know what to say? If somebody, let's say, harasses you, do you stay quiet? Do you take it and just not tell anybody about it, even if somebody says something inappropriate? Well, my friends, those are examples of passive behavior and passive communication, which is something that assertiveness can help you with tremendously, right? Assertiveness is all about being able to confidently and calmly express yourself, express your ideas, express your needs, your wants, your boundaries without feeling anxiety, and at the same time being very respectful and very considerate and thoughtful towards others. So it's about respecting others and making sure that you are respected and that you are able and you feel comfortable expressing yourself fully in whatever way that is for you. And that is a skill, and such a powerful skill that you can learn. And today I want to share with you 3 important assertiveness techniques that you can use in situations where maybe you feel like others are manipulating you, or you're in a difficult conversation, you're trying to figure out how to deal with it, or other people are being aggressive and you don't know what to do. So these are going to be some techniques that you can use. They're going to help you deal with aggression or manipulation from others, because they're also going to help disarm the person who's being aggressive towards you. So here we go. 3 important assertiveness techniques are going to help you deal with difficult people, difficult situations, and do so in a more natural way. Number 1 technique is called fogging, right? What is fogging? And when do you use it? You mainly use it when someone is acting in an aggressive or even manipulative way with you. Like you feel like they're trying to take advantage of you, and it helps disarm them. And it's really good to cut a conversation short and be able to move on to something else without committing to any change, committing to anything that they want. This is great if you're just trying to get past something, buy time, or a relationship is not that important and you just want to get it over with. This could be some work colleagues. This could be some sales agents. It's also really good to calm down the environment. Sometimes there's the heat of the conversation, that moment, and you don't want to have a conversation. You don't want to commit to anything. You don't want to really negotiate in that moment. And you'd rather just take some time to think about the situation, get away from that moment, that heat, so that you can have a better opinion about what's going on. And that is what fogging can help you with. So this is great with this if you want to have a really reasonable conversation with your boss, with loved ones, with direct reports, with your employees or other people that you want to have a good relationship with. That can help you push a topic that just happened and it just kind of exploded and you weren't prepared for it, and you can deal with it later. Basically helps you deal and cope with criticism and aggressive attempts that others do in a very calm and a very constructive way as well. So it's almost like a fog. Let's say you're driving and there's a fog. Things seem to sort of dissipate in thin air, And that's exactly what happens with this technique. You help this problem sort of dissipate in thin air. Isn't that like a dream? And you're not agreeing to change anything. You're not agreeing to anything in this conversation, even if the other person's being very pushy and very aggressive. How does this work? How does fogging work? The first thing is a very simple technique that you can use, and it's super straightforward and super effective. The first thing you do is you acknowledge the criticism or the comment or whatever is coming to you, the pushiness that you may not like, you don't agree with, but it doesn't matter. You just acknowledge it. I'm going to give you some examples in a moment, but you could just say, hey, I agree with this, or you are right in that, or you might have a point with this. And then you agree with a portion of what the other person says, even if it's a small thing. So let's say they're accusing you of 10 things. Pick up one thing, one little thing that you can agree with. And I know this is hard sometimes. You got to really focus and think, okay, out of all of this stuff, what can I actually agree with? Is there anything here that I can say, okay, I agree with this part, right? Let's say if somebody says, you're always late, or you're so inconsiderate and always late to every meeting. You're so disrespectful. And you're like, okay, I agree that sometimes I am late to meetings. You see that you're just agreeing partly that sometimes you're late to meetings. And then that's basically fogging, right? You're not agreeing to anything. You're partially acknowledging, and the power of acknowledgement. That is what people want. People feel heard when they feel acknowledged. And so when you acknowledge them, that's all they want to hear. That's going to bring them a certain comfort. It's like comfort food, that you're giving to someone is acknowledgement. And you could do that even with an aggressor. So when you give people acknowledgement, they're so fulfilled, they're so happy in that moment with that little acknowledgement that sometimes they're good. They don't need more from you. Right? That's all they need. It's like when you sometimes go talk to a friend, and they come to you with lots of problems. They start sharing their problems, and you try to solve their problem. You go straight to problem solving mode. That's not what they want. They just want acknowledgement. They just want you to say, oh, yeah, you're right. That's hard. I get it. I understand you. That's all they want. They want to feel understood. They want to feel heard. They want to feel acknowledged. That's exactly what you're doing here with the aggressor and the manipulator or the critic. You are acknowledging them. And here's the important part. This has to be unemotional. You can't get too emotional about it. Now, I know that's the hard part, but it comes with practice. And you also, it's a minimalism approach to the conversation. You're trying to quit the conversation so that you can move on and to other things, or so that you can bring it back at another time when you want to bring it back. Not now, not in that moment. It's always good to have some time to think about a topic, something that hits you by surprise and you don't know how to deal with it and you don't feel ready to have that conversation. Delay it, right? This is a great way to delay it without telling the person that they're wrong or they're right. You're just saying, hey, this little piece of what you said is what I agree with. And you got to figure out what that is. Now, the optional thing is you could add a short comment that explains a little bit of your perspective, but this, you don't have to do this. The more you explain, the more you're inviting them to talk. And that's not going to help you get out of the conversation, right? Your goal is to sort of move away for a moment, and then you can decide if you want to come back to the topic or not. Right? Obviously, if it's feedback from someone important, you want to come back to it at some point. Now, if it's something that, aggressor, somebody's really you don't want to even hear from them ever again, then you don't need to bring it back. So, for example, let's say a spouse says, the dishes are still dirty. You never wash them after dinner. You can't do anything right. So that's an aggression, right? That comment is not true, first of all, and it's quite aggressive. So you could say, you know what, you're right that sometimes I don't wash the dishes right after dinner. And again, optional, if you want to add something, small comment with your perspective, it's got to be short. You could say something non-controversial. Yeah, I prefer to wash them in the morning. But then you have to move on, right? You move on. You can leave or just change topics. Let's say your partner says, I really don't like what you're wearing. It looks strange and vulgar. And you're like, okay, well, you probably have a point in that my clothing is not the most traditional. I like to look non-conventional. You see how it is? Like, it's natural. It just flows. It's not confrontational. You're not saying yes. You're not saying no. It's that wonderful middle ground. Now, here's another technique that is wonderful, and it is also very well known. It's called the broken record technique. You know, the broken record is all about repetition, right? The broken record is like, it keeps going back and repeats that same thing. That's what this is. It's when, you know, the other person is trying to take advantage of you, or do something that you don't want, or you just don't want to deal with something you really want your point to come across and they're not listening. And that's where you just keep repeating what you said over and over again. Maybe you add a few things, maybe you change up the words a little bit, but you keep repeating it until they accept it. And you don't want to use this all the time because it does sound a little bit defensive, right? Or a little bit pushy, but in moderation, I think it's very effective. And you could use this with unreasonable requests from people either trying to sell you things or people trying to get you to do their work for them, or even from family and friends. And sometimes you'll see that other people are being persistent to get what they want from you. So you have to be persistent in defending your space, your time, your energy, right? And your boundaries. It's a persistence game. And if you allow their persistence to win, then that's not going to be good for you, right? But think of it that way. Like, they are being persistent with their pushiness and their request. So you are absolutely in your right to be persistent in your enforcing your boundaries, right? So it's very natural. You're just doing the same thing that they're doing in this case. So it's very easy to apply. All you need to do is state your point, your boundary, your thought in a very clear and calm manner. This is all about that calmness. Having that calmness in your voice and your posture is very important. And then all you can do is repeat what you just said using a similar language as many times as needed. So you might say it and they might try argue, and then you say it again, and they argue again, and you say it again, and then they ask you again, you say it again, and you just keep saying it really calmly. And you might even use the exact same words. Just look at them, or maybe you speak a little bit slower, maybe a little bit faster. And remember that you're only going to compromise, like in any negotiation. You're only going to get to say, okay, I'll do what you want, if you're really happy with that, with the solution that you guys come up with. Otherwise, don't do that. That's not respectful to yourself. You see, you have to be respectful. You have to be okay when you say yes. It's got to be thoughtful, and it's got to be something that you're okay with, that you're going to feel good about, not that you're going to feel bad about. So don't, scream. Don't look angry. Don't raise your voice. None of that. Don't get distracted with other things. Don't try to have side conversations. This is all about calm, direct, neutral, clear voice, very self-controlled. And the secret sauce, my friends, is in consistency of your message. What does that look like? Well, let's say, the typical situation of somebody who would be really pushy is a pushy salesperson, right? And they call you up and they say, oh, I have a wonderful product here. You have to try it. I'm going to give you a free trial. You can do this, but you have to try it. You got to buy this. It's amazing. It's amazing. And then you say, I'm not interested. Thank you. And then the salesperson is going to keep trying, right? Because that's what they do. And they're like, oh no, this product is going to change your life. You don't understand. It's so good. And you just have to sign up. It's only $1 and it's going to change your life. You got to get this product. And then you say, okay, I'm not interested. Thank you. And then they're like, no, you have to do this. You have to do this. It's so amazing. I get you. I hear you. I'm not interested. Thank you. Just keep on going. And eventually they'll quit. They'll give up. Let's say somebody says, that there is a penalty. So let's say a service agent says, oh no, there's a penalty fee of 50% that you have to pay if you cancel this booking. And then you might say something like, okay, well, I canceled this booking because this is a situation I actually went through. And I said, I canceled this booking because of the unhealthy smoke conditions in the area, because there was a wildfire in this forest that we had a booking at. And therefore, I would like to get a full refund, please. And then the agent says, I'm sorry, the terms and conditions say that we have to charge you 50% fee and penalties. And then all I did was keep repeating myself. I said, listen, I canceled the booking because of the smoke conditions that were not healthy at the hotel location, and I would like the full refund, please. The full refund amount, please. Like, I'm sorry, the terms and conditions we must charge is 50%. That I can't do anything about it. That's the rule. And I just kept repeating until they said they called their manager and they got the cancellation for me. Full refund. Right? So sometimes it works magic. If you're very confident about what your position is, then just stick to it. Let's say your boss says, I need you to help me with this project of the weekend. And then you say, well, I understand that you need help, but I'm not available this weekend. And then your boss says, well, this is critical for the team's success, and you're really the only person I can count on for this. And you're like, well, I get it. Acknowledgement. I understand that this is critical, though I cannot help this weekend under this short notice. And then they're like, no, but you don't understand. This is critical. Without this, we're going to have problems. And you're like, well, I get that, but I'm not available this weekend. Happy to help another day. So consistency here is the secret for this one. Now, I want to share with you this other technique that you are going to love, and it also helps you deal with criticism, harsh criticism. Maybe it's a very close and formal relationship. You want like a win-win situation, or you want to learn more, explore more. You don't understand what they're saying. You don't really understand their criticism. You don't understand why it's such a negative thing. And when you have a little bit of time to get into the conversation. So maybe, remember the first technique we talked about, fogging? Maybe you do fogging first, and then once you're ready, and then you come into negative inquiry, and then you sort of resolve it from there, right? Because with this technique, it really becomes very non-defensive, non-judgmental, very safe, very good dialogue. And you're just having a conversation. You're creating a conversation out of something that is a criticism. And that allows you to really understand what's going on and what are they trying to express. Because sometimes people have a hard time expressing themselves and they come out aggressive, but that's not really what they mean. And sometimes they're just speaking their own truths, and it's not your truth, or it's not the truth in the context you're in. So you need to guide the person through this process so that you can understand where they're coming from with their criticism, and also clarify to them what the issue is, and if there is an issue or not, without the judgment, without the blaming, without the like all that stuff. So what do? You're just going to listen to what they say, right? Even if it's a harsh criticism. And then you're going to ask questions, but not any type of questions. You're going to ask questions to try to understand what's causing the negative comment. You're trying to really go deep here and understand what's going on. So it's got to be neutral, open-ended, very specific, and you're going to keep asking questions and going deeper until you really understand what's going on. So the goal is for you to understand is just go mining and trying to find what's happening. And of course, you can always use active listening to make sure that you getting them to feel like they're hearing you, you're hearing them as well. And then you can, after that, decide if the information is helpful for you or not, right? If the criticism is something you want to act on or you want to ignore. That's up to you. Now, again, like anything else, with assertive, confident, respectful communication, you want to make sure that you are calm. You're not showing any anger or any negative emotions. You're not trying to attack them. You're not being judgmental. You're not attacking them. You're not trying to be defensive or sarcastic. You're really cool and collected, You're not really focused on the other person, but you're focused on the problem. You're trying to figure out what the problem is, and if there is a problem in the first place, and if it's something relevant or not for you. So there's many ways of doing that, but the important thing is for you not to make an accusation of them, because otherwise it just starts a war, and you don't want that, right? Conflict. And it doesn't get you anywhere, just worse situation. So you want to make sure that you don't point your fingers. You don't say, why do you think that I am this? Or why why are you doing or saying that? Because that every time you put the word you in there, it tends to make it confrontational. So your goal is to just learn and be curious. Learn and be curious. That's all. So for example, let's say that a friend says, I can't count on you as a friend. Like you're not reliable, and I can never count on you. And then you could say, why are you saying that you can't count on me? You see, that doesn't work that well, because you're saying, why don't you? And every time you say you, it's like you're pointing a finger at them, and people that's how they're feeling that statement. So instead, put that first word as related to you. So you should say, what have I done that makes me a bad friend? You see how neutral that is? Like there's no way that they can interpret that as an accusation. It's all about the choice of words and your posture and just being really cool and relaxed when you say this. And then they'll say, you don't share your information, your contacts with me, and that's really annoying. And then you might say, okay, and listen, look, you're trying to investigate the situation here. You say, what have I done, or what is the situation where I haven't shared my contacts with you? Because now you're like, I have no idea what this person's talking about. But you want to make sure that you approach in a very casual way. And then they're going to say, this time, 2 weeks ago, you didn't share in this situation. And you're like, oh, the fact that I didn't share that contact with you 2 weeks ago, did that create a problem? And then they're going to share that, it created a problem. And now you're just asking more and more open-ended questions that are non-judgmental. You're not pointing your finger at them. And you're just exploring and learning more. So you see how that works, right? So we talked about fogging, where it's like you're making a problem dissipate in thin air by acknowledging partially what the person is saying, so you can move forward and just keep, or come back to the issue later when people are not too negative and the emotions are not as high. We also talked about the broken record, where you just repeat yourself until you make sure you are heard, right? Sometimes people feel like, I'm not heard. And sometimes other people are super insistent in what they want, and it's not what you want. And they're trying to press your boundaries. This is what you got to do sometimes. You got to very calmly, very, very friendly voice, just repeat yourself. And it's okay. They're repeating themselves. You can repeat yourself. And then when you use questioning without attacking them, just to explore and delve deep into the territory of the criticism of the issue, so that you can understand what's happening, so you can actually have an open and honest conversation that resolves and solves the problem that you are having. That is the third technique. I hope this helped you. You see, there's a magic in assertiveness that once you learn these things and you start applying it, it's just going to feel so good. You're going to love this so much. You're going to feel so empowered. You're going to feel like, wow, you have the magic, like psychological magic that changes things, that changes people's behaviors, that gets you to move a dialogue, a confrontation, a conflict, a criticism in the direction that you want. You are able to somewhat control a situation. You're not controlling the other person. Remember this. Assertiveness is not about controlling other people. You're only controlling your own behavior, but you're guiding the situation in the direction that you want by using these techniques. It makes things so much better. And you're not going to be ruminating and upset and angry and blaming others and worsening your relationships. No, this is all good. This is all good for your relationship. It's good for you. It's a win-win. It's sweet. It's beautiful. And it's assertiveness. And I hope you apply these in your job and with your work relationships, with your family relationship, with your friends, because it works with everybody, with your kids, your spouse. It's amazing. It's very positive. Be thoughtful about when you're going to use each one of these, but it's so helpful and it's going to change your life. I'm telling you, it's going to change your life. Try it out. Let me know in the comments. Let me know in the comments below here, or what you thought. How did it go for you? Which one did you like? What do you think? Are you surprised? Have you ever heard of any of these strategies before? Let me know. I'd love to know. I'm so delighted that you joined me here today. And remember that you can check out the notes for the show of this episode on my blog at assertiveway.com/blog. So let me ask you, how does it feel when a friend thinks of you and shares something useful with you in your email, LinkedIn? It feels good, doesn't it, to be remembered? Because there's no better gift than the gift of sharing success strategies and things for us to grow and do more and be happy. So I invite you to share this podcast with a friend that you cherish and you support so that they can feel that care and support from you too. Thank you once more, and I wish you a wonderful, delightful day and week ahead.